Hello everyone! Welcome to this week's office hours. Let me know, just in case, if you can hear and see me well. So today we are going to be, as you can see from the title, diving deep into remove module. So I prepared a couple of shots. You may think that remove module is pretty simple because there are not a lot of settings there. Hello chat. Hello everyone. So yeah, I have a couple of shots, and at first look you may think that all of them are pretty the same, but actually each one will be a bit different. So sometimes you can do a remove when your object is static, sometimes your camera may be static, or other cases both of your camera and object will be moving. So yeah, I'm reading chat. Hello everyone. So yeah, let's dive deep into the After Effects and see what I have prepared. So we would start with a very basic shot, but this is just to fresh out our memory how the remove module actually works. So we have a car moving, and our camera is also doing slight zoom in. So I have Mocha, but I would click reset so we can start fresh. All right, I would change my color space because this one is Rec 709. Now it's looking a bit better. So what do we need to do? First thing, I would track this car. So I create a really simple shape, and I would actually track only translation, I think, because it is very small on this screen and I don't really need shear and perspective track. Let's see how Mocha will track that. Cool. That's enough for our demo, because you may clearly see that the car was moving a bit longer way, but I just cut the shot so we can do that really fast. So I would name my layer car now. And now we need a background layer because, as I said in the beginning, if you have a shot where your object is moving and your camera is moving, we need to track both. So I would draw a second layer just to track my ground, and I would put that below my car layer and call that background. I would turn off the gear icon from the car because we already tracked that and we don't need to track that twice. And again, for background track, I would also disable the shear. We would only track translation, scale, rotation. Perhaps I would even turn rotation off. And let's track that out. All right, looks good. Now we can dive into remove module. So when we first move to remove module, we need to make sure that our background layer is located below the layer of the object that we want to remove. So our layers is located correct, but I need to also make sure that I have selected my layer that I want to clean up. So the gear icon should be only on the object that we want to remove. Now, if I try to render the remove model, I won't be creating any clean plates yet. So let's see what result we can get without any preparation. So first frame looking good. Let's track all the shot. There is a comment in the chat where we can download the shots. So mostly all of the shots what I'm working is from free stocks. So unfortunately, I cannot provide you a link right now, but perhaps you can Google just free stock footages aerial and you will totally find something like this. Okay, So I would disable my layer outlines so you can see our result better. And play back this shot. And you can see that our car is already begun. But if I zoom a bit closely and look at this area, I can still see a little bit of a trail if you look really closely. And I hope you can see that through the YouTube compression, but there is a little bit of ghosting, I would say that. So how can we fix that? I would go back into my track module and select my car layer, turn on my outlines. So what I can do is make my shape a little bit bigger. So this was the first frame. And also I would fix the last one. Cool. And now I would turn my Uber key. And what Uber key does is when you're making any changes to your spline or to your edge, it will apply those changes to all of the frame range. So I would now adjust my feather edge, and it will be applied both to the first frame and to the last frame. So I go into my edge properties. This is on the left of the screen. And this is one of the new features in the Mocha 2023. So we can adjust our edge separately from each other. So outer edge basically controls our feather. So if I click plus a couple of times, you can see that the blue edge is now represents our feathering. I would reset that. One sec. All right, so outer is for the feather. Inner is basically our main shape, so we can also control that. And both, if I would with a default value of 3 in this field and click plus a couple of times, you can see our edge, or basically our whole shape can be smaller or bigger. So it kind of works the same as mask expanding in After Effects, if you're familiar with that. Cool, but for now I only need the feather, so I choose outer edge and click on plus a couple of times. And now my shape and math looks something like this. Cool, so I would turn off the Uber key. And let's get back to our move module back. So I try to render it again. It's a bit harder for Mocha to process now because we have slightly bigger shape, but it's still keeping pretty good. All right, I would turn my outlines off again so they won't distract us from looking at the shape. And as you can see, our result is already getting much better. So I don't see any of the trails that was there before. This is how our full shot looks like. Cool, that was easy. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this one looks similar to the previous one, but there is one difference. So when I play it back, you can see that our camera is static. And this is a great shot to show you one of the new features in Mocha 2023. So I will grab my Mocha again. And let's choose a few cars that we want to remove. Okay, so let's work with these white tracks. Again, very simple shape. And I'm tracking only translation and call that track 1. When it will reach to the edge, perhaps I would need to adjust it manually because he lost our track. That's fine. All right, and now let's track it backwards. Okay, cool. I would limit my layer ranges by hitting on this button and also for the end. Okay, cool. So now you might think, well, we need to draw another shape for the background layer. And actually, no. So if I move to the remove layer, when we're working on a static shot, now we don't need to track our background anymore because, well, that is a bit redundant. Our camera is static. Why would we need to track that? But if you look here, I cannot click on a gear icon to render my remove. And why is that? And that's because we need to turn on this new settings in the remove module settings that is called static scene. So once I turn it on, you can see that everything is now enabled now, and I can hit render. And voila, our track is gone. So let's render that a couple of frames. And now looks good, even without we didn't track our background. Let's check if that would work, if this will work for the couple of shapes. So maybe let's try track this another track. So I call that track 2. And I would disable the tracking gear icon from the track 1 because we don't want to track that twice. So let's do that again. Yeah, now Mocha cannot continue to track because most of the shape is out of frame, so I would need to adjust that manually. All right. Backwards. And the same here. Okay, now we go to the remove module again. And now I can actually select both of this layer, turn the gear icons for both of them, and try to render. So this one is going pretty fast because there is not much to remove. Well, cool. I believe you can see that this already saved us a lot of time if we would try to clean up those tracks manually. Now let's move on to the a bit slightly harder examples. So this is actually the shot from our forum. So yeah, if you have any questions regarding our softwares, feel free to ask questions on our forums or reach the support if you have any technical issues. So yeah, this shot was sent by user. I would delete my Mocha because I already did this one shot. So we can start from the blank. So the user was asking how I would remove this gaffer tape that was left here if I have some occlusion. So the person is like, at first we cannot see the gaffer tape, but then he moves and we definitely can see that. And luckily, we have another take from this location, which looks like this. So we could use this part of the image to create a clean plate and then track that with the help of Mocha. So what I did, I have already my clean plate prepared. So as you can see here, so I just exported still frame from the video and merged that with the help of Photoshop, one over another. And don't pay attention that we have part of the face here because we only be working with this area. Cool. Now let's add Mocha to this shot. Oops, I suddenly applied Mocha AE, and that's not what we wanted. I want Mocha Pro. All right, so it may look that this scene is static, and it mostly are, but still there is some of the camera movement. So I would still track my background layer because that one will be needed. And you may think that I need to track this area, and that's true, but if you look closely, you can see that there is some phone that is flickering, and also obviously this area is getting occluded. So instead of tracking this phone, what I would do instead, I would track this wall slightly from above. And because the motion is relatively moving in one direction, that would be totally fine if instead of phone, I would track this wall. So I'm drawing my simple shape. Call that wall. Again, I will turn off scale, rotation, and shear. And to check how good my track will be, I would place my surface tool right on this dot. Cool, let's move on. Great, the track is done. Now what I can do, I would move this shape over the area where I actually want to work. And because the motion is relatively the same, that would be totally fine. So this is now my background layer. I would even make that slightly bigger. Cool. Now, instead of tracking my phone another time, what I can actually do is just duplicate my wall layer and call that remove. Because both wall and phone moving simultaneously. But for the remove shape, I would change my spline color to green so we can identify them a bit easier. So the green one is that what we want to remove. And the red one is our background. So everything is moving accordingly. Cool. Now I would move into my remove module. And instead of hitting create, because I already have my clean plate created, I can click on this drop-down menu and select Import. Now I can search for a file on my PC. So I hit choose the needed file. And by default, the frame number is set to all. But I know that I was painting this clean plate on the frame number 37. So I need to put this number in. It's 37. Okay. And let's try render that. And immediately we can see the result. But that's only the half of the problem, because now we need to fix this here. So for the hair, I would create a new layer. There is a question. Can you import an image sequence so you can add grain before doing the removal? Yes, you can. But if you are not doing remove through the remove module, I would actually suggest you importing the sequence through the insert module. Because for the remove module, I believe it shouldn't work like that. Because we are importing like only one frame. Okay, cool. I would call my layer hair. Actually, I would disable both of the underlay layer because we need to do our rota for the hair. And for that, I would perhaps use Power Mesh. So I click Generated Mesh, turn it on the mesh tracking, and let's do the first rough try. All right, this is not perfect, but it's good for the start. Now, to adjust this shape a little bit easier, I would reach out for the new tool that is called feathering. So now you can see this outline circle, and what it identifies is that if you hold Shift, if you hold Control, you can change the radius of this circle. And let me, for the demo, do it with a small circle, so you can see that now I'm moving only one point at the spline. But if I would turn my circle really big, now all of the adjacent splines also moving relatively. And that is super useful when I'm working with organic objects like human body or hair like here. So instead of adjusting only one point at a time, I can adjust the whole spline. So let's quickly fix our hair here. So this one looks good. And this one needs a bit of adjusting. But overall, we did our rota for the hair pretty quickly. So I need to turn off my fall off tool again. Now we're in our regular mode. Let's select our remove shape and try removing that again. So I fall off to remove module. And actually, when we were importing our clean plate, I forgot to turn on use clean plates exclusively. And that is super important if we want to use the clean plate that we painted somewhere else, like in Photoshop. So when we turn it on, Mocha won't try to rebuild the clean plate for you from the other frames. It will just use the one that you have provided. So I turn that on and we render that. Cool, we're almost there. But the problem that we have now is that these edges are super sharp and that is not looking very good. So what I would do again, I would use my edge feathering. So first I would add some feathering to the green shape. So I select my Uber key and click on a plus to add feathering to this edge and to this one. Now for the hair, again, and select all of the points and click on plus. But we don't see any changes yet because we need to get back to the remove module and hit on render again. All right, and here's how we removed our gaff tape. Well, there is small things that we would need to adjust, like there are a couple of frames that requires manual tweaking. So I made my shapes slightly bigger, so it will cover all of the pixels. And for the couple of frames, I can still see the green tape, so I would also adjust that here. Check all of the rest frames. And let's render that again. Cool. So I would turn my outlines now and let's see how it looks overall. Looks fine for me. Again, let's check how it was before and after. And to actually render that in After Effects, you can see that the green tape is still here, so I would need to go into my Mocha settings, model render, choose the model that I want to render, this case is remove, and turn on the render checkbox. Our picture has changed. And here's our result. Okay, so that was for the occlusions. As you can see that even if we have some occlusions in the shot, this is not really a problem if we need to remove something that is located behind the object. Now let's move to the other example. And I will describe you what's tricky about this one. I would delete all of the work that I have done here already. And let's see what we have. So this is again shot from the forum. And the question was, how do I remove a logo or some text from the object that is not flat? And I won't say that this one would be easy shot, but it's still possible to do with Mocha. So let's try to achieve that. All right. So I won't be clean upping all of these labels because the technique will be the same. So I would start for this one. So first I would search a frame where my logo that I need to remove is mostly flat to the camera. And now we can see that I have a time code in Mocha timeline, but I actually prefer to work not with the time code, but with frames. So I need to change that in After Effects and close Mocha for a second. So I hit Ctrl, and here I have time code behind my viewer. So I hold Ctrl and click on that, and now it has been changed to frames. So we are working from frame 17 to 50. Okay. All right, so I find the needed frame. There is a question in the chat, what is my PC configuration? Well, I'm actually working on a laptop, and I can't say the specific model you right now, but it is Asus Duo from year 2022. Yes, some of the latest one. And as you can see, Mocha is working pretty well on that, even if that is just a laptop. Okay, cool. I would start with the frame 30. And first thing I would do is track these letters. So I would be quite precise here, because for this remove, we would be doing work step by step. Actually, no, I would do it slightly bigger. So not too precise, but still pretty close. All right. So it's called that this layer text. And what I need this for is, first I want to create a mask that would be used for the area that I will be clean upping. So I won't be tracking the whole surface. I need only the text. And to do that simpler, I would use Mesh Tracker again. So I click on Track Mesh. Now I generate the mesh. And let's track that. So it's mostly did a good job. But slight adjustments are still required, so I would reach for the Fall Off tool again. This circle is pretty small for me, so I hold Ctrl, make the radius bigger, and now I can easily adjust this shape. So I gotta make sure that all of the brown colors is inside this mask, because instead it will spill out if I would try to remove that. So a little bit here and there. And you can see that it's really easy and fast to do that with the fall off, because I'm not adjusting only one point. I'm doing that in the clusters. If I need that smaller, I just hit Control and adjust the radius. Okay, cool. So now we have our text tracked, and I need to track my surface. Why I'm doing this separately? Because this mask will be used only for the text inside shape. So I would disable that and draw another shape. You might think that this light is good to track, and they may be, but the problem with that is that sometimes they are flickering. So light here is turned on, and then they are turned off. So I would try to avoid them instead and just drew the one big shape. Okay, so there is a question about the pricing for the remove, but unfortunately I cannot tell you that, because each studio has their own prices, and this is not something that we do for a client's work. So yeah, today I'm only showing you how the tool works, so you can learn that and make your own prices. Okay, cool. I would perhaps disable shear for this one and track. So yeah, this one is going to be pretty bad, because this is not a flat surface, so we would need to adjust that by hands. Well, actually, let's even try to do only the translation. So I would place center of my surface tool on this tip of the letter H. So that will be kind of guide. Nope, it's still slipping. But it is slipping in the areas where most of the shape is already out of the camera vision. And now forwards. Okay, so this side seems to be a bit finer. Cool, so this is gonna be our background, so I would make that slightly bigger. And I would also want to use adjust track on this layer, because I know that this track is not perfect now, because this is a round shape and Mocha is not an object tracker, it is planar tracker, so we need to fix that. So I fall into adjust track module and choose where I want to place my dots. So I create 4 dots, and we kind of have this I don't know, details on this on our carousel, and I think they are going to be good to be our reference points. So I place that right in the middle. Set it as a reference frame and adjust it in the both sides. It is barely visible here, but I assume it is somewhere right here. Yep, some of the manual work is still required here. This one is mostly okay. Now let's check the beginning. And we are almost there. So let's check what we have. All right, I think this should work for our example. Cool. So I call that layer track and put that behind, as always. Hello, Macy in the chat. All right, so for this shot, I know that I don't have any pixels like where I can restore this object from, so I just have to paint it in some other software. So I would go into my track layer and I would start with the layer 30 because this one is the most flat to the camera. So I go here and I hit create. And now Mocha suggests me to choose the place where I want to save this file. So I have a folder carousel live and it is saved. And now I remember to turn on use clean plate exclusively because this is the shot where for this is gonna be vital for us. So now I can search for that plate on my PC. Here we have this shot, and I would open that in Photoshop. All right. So to remove this sign, it should be relatively simple because it's only one still frame yet. So I would choose my lasso tool. And again, I would work step by step. So first I would remove this top word. All right, so I now right click on this shape and choose fill. And maybe it won't work from the first try, but let's see. Well, it did some job, but we need to do that again. So now I'm selecting only the area with the artifacts. Click on Fill again. And this one looks pretty workable. So now for the second word, sorry. All right, fill. Wow, this one was from the first try. Well, there is some amount of the artifacts. Let's try to clean up with the patch tool. Yeah, now I believe it looks better. So now we can just click Save and close Photoshop. So this one was saved. And now if I would try to render in Mocha, the result should be updated. So let's check that. And it is. But this is only the one frame. Let's check what we will see if now I would try to render that forwards and backwards. And this is where the problem starts happening. So it worked really great on the frame that we painted because we were doing that manually. But for the areas in the beginning and in the end of the shot, you see that the light is pretty different than in the middle. And here's where the illumination models come in handy. So if I would try to choose linear, let's try rendering that. So you see that if I switch before and after, there is a change. It tries to average the color, but it's still not quite working for us. So now let's try the interpolate model. This one is going to be a bit harder to render, but it works the result. So let's check. And we already seeing the result. Well, we have some of the artifacts, but we will see how we can fix that. Now I would render backwards so we can have our base plate. All right, so we have some flickering, but most of the work looking pretty good. So where does this comes from? It comes from our shape was not perfect. So you see the spline is touching the letters and the color is bleeding a bit. So I would go frame by frame and try to avoid these sections. And I would periodically click on render to see if I remove them or not. All right, so the ending looks good. Now let's check the backwards. And yep, this one is a bit more problematic. So I need to adjust here, here. Just need to find the balance, because if you will go like this, then the light from the bulb will start to bleed. And if I will go down too much, then we will see some of the leftovers from the letters. So we kind of need to put our spline somewhere in between. Hello, chat. All right, let's check the results. Oops, I have a couple of frames that was not adjusted. Let me fix that. Here is it. All right, so as you can see, our central part is looking, well, pretty much okay, but kind of have a problems in the first couple of shots, in the beginning of the frame, and also at the end. And we have a solution how we can fix that, because first frame that first clean plate that we were creating, we did that on the frame number 30. But that doesn't mean that we cannot create even more clean plates. So if I put my playheads on the frame number 17, which one is, that was the first frame, and I can click create again. And the Mocha will save, suggest me to save another clean plate. So what I can do is, if I have any problematic areas, I can add a couple of more clean plates, and that will fix the job. So actually, I have already prepared a couple of these clean plates. So let me show that to you. So I have one for the frame number 30 that we just created. And I also have one for the beginning of the shot, and the other one for the 50. So now I can just import that into Mocha. So I click on Edit. And for the frame number 17, I would import that. So I choose clean plate frame number 17. But I need to adjust the frame number. As you can see, it was set to 1. So I put 17. And now I'm adding another one clean plate, which is for the frame 50. So I set that to 50. So now we have 3 of them. And what Mocha will do is it will try to blend between all of these 3 clean plates, and we should get a pretty smooth result. So our use clean plate exclusively is turned on. So let's try and check what we have. And boom! Right from the start, our frame is fixed. So now let's render the whole range. And magically, all of that flickering, except the light flickering that we didn't want to clean up, it was mostly fixed. So yeah, here is how we removed one of the labels here. So I used 3 plates, one from the middle, the one from the start, and the last one for the ending one, and that did the job. So if I want to remove all of the others labels here, I would need to repeat the same process for all of these labels, but it will be just the same, so we won't be focusing on that. So yeah, let me, before we end, check the chat if there is any questions. Okay, so there is the questions if we always need to use the Photoshop. Well, no, as if you didn't watch the stream from the beginning, so I was showing the shots when Mocha, in some cases, can build the clean plate for you if you have other frames that didn't, if the object that you want to remove was located in some other place, then Mocha will do that automatically. But with this shot, we don't have such frames because the label is static, so I would have to paint that somewhere else. So I did that in Photoshop because this was the fastest for today, but if you can do that in Silhouette, that would be perfect. Or you can, I don't know, use some free photo editors. I believe the one is called, I'm not sure, Git. Let me actually check that for you. Free online Photoshop. Don't remember how it's called correctly. Oh, sorry, I cannot find it right now, but basically any photo editor will work for this shot. Affinity Paint. Well, maybe I didn't check that this specific one, but I believe there is a lot of them. And actually, if you didn't check out my last video in Silhouette, now we have the stability node there. So I believe GIMP, yeah, you're right. I was trying to remember the GIMP one. So yeah, you can use anything you want, but most of the work will still be done in Mocha. I mean tracking, rotoscoping, so Mocha is your assistant for these tasks. Okay. How to add text on the clean area? If you mean this clean area, well, that would be the same as adding it in any other objects. So as you can see, we already have a track layer here. Let me enable that. So yeah, this is our main surface. So you can use that for the insert. But because our surface is curved a bit, you would want to use the warping mode. So let me import some default grid just to show you. Would you use another instance of Mocha to remove or other sign to do it in all the same instance? Yes, that's correct. Unfortunately, we cannot render both from remove module and for the insert module simultaneously. So perhaps I would leave the one just for the clean plate and the other one for the insert itself. But I would just copy the project, so I don't need to do the tracking. I can use just this one. So yeah, let me import the grid and show you that we have warping inside the insert module. So I don't need warping on this frame because, well, maybe just a little bit. So let me zoom in. So yeah, I followed into insert module, and on the comp tab, when it turns on, if I would try to adjust my surface, you can see that now it is warping. So now I would just do it just by eye. So I would probably need to adjust also in the middle. and during the whole frame range. Surely my track is not perfect because we needed that for the remove. So there is some wobbling right now, but the basic idea that you do the track and then you use warping to put anything that you want there. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question. The two other signs on the right. Well, yeah, the other two signs, we won't be touching that today because the technique is basically the same. So if you want to remove all of these signs, you would need to feed more and more clean plates into Mocha and track each of them independently. And we're also running out of time, so we cannot leave that for today. Okay, cool. I think it's time to wrap up for today. So this was a dive into remove module. We started with the simple shots and continued to the more harder one where we have occlusions and when we have non-flat surfaces. I hope you had a great time and you learned how to use remove module a bit more. And if something was not clear, I'm trying to explain it the best as I can, but just you can rewatch the stream if you missed some of the sections. And my name was Elizabeth Postol. Thanks for being with me. See you later. Bye-bye.